evening, SICW wrestling fans. Welcome to this week's SICW Sunday Night Update. We're going to go a little different this week, as normally we would be sitting here talking about what's coming on this week's SICW All-Star Wrestling episode. However, we are coming off of a great show, the SICW Halloween Spooktacular at the Belclair Fairgrounds. And Herb, you thought, which I believe is a great idea, that we should spend this week recapping that amazing event.
Well, there's still such a buzz around the entire Metro East, St. Louis region of what took place last Saturday night at that fairgrounds. I mean, everywhere you go, all the pictures that are still being posted. I mean, it was just one great extravaganza there inside that Belclair Fairgrounds. I mean, from the trunk or treat to the hay rides, and the meet and greet with all those legends, and then, of course, the night of the wrestling. People's going to be talking about it for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was a great night to be there. There were hundreds of fans in attendance from the moment the doors opened at 4 o'clock. Doors opened at 4 o'clock, and the fans poured in there, and they continued to arrive all the way up until bell time at 7 o'clock, and they stuck around for a great night of wrestling action. I mean, where else do you have an event with 11 wrestling legends that are willing to meet and greet with the fans, sign autographs, take pictures? I mean, that was the highlight of the night for a lot of the people.
Oh, yeah, and then, professional photographers was there taking pictures of that two-ring battle royal because it hadn't been one since about 1983, 84, I think it was. So it was a little history-making right there, but as you'll be able to see later on as we show some clips, the crowd was a buzz, and like I said, the photographers were there, the fans had their cameras out, everybody just coming up talking about how great of an event it was. It brought the entire area together, kids running around in their costumes. We had the costume contest. Everybody, it was just a great night, and people, the most common thing they were saying, when can we do this again? So,
well, it was definitely a great show to put on. Let's talk a little bit about the legends that were there. You got to start the wrestling night off with a great man in the ring there with you, helping doing some announcing.
Well, there was nobody better than to do that other than our good friend Jimmy Hart, the Mouth of the South, has been in the business for a long, long time, knows every one of the legends that we had there that night, managed almost all of them at one point or the other in his career. So I thought it was only fitting to have him help do the opening ceremonies, starting off from the King all the way to the last one.
Absolutely, and even prior to that, he was present at the meet and greet, back out at his table throughout the whole night. The fans loved taking a few minutes to sit there and talk with the Mouth of the South.
Oh, yeah. He's always got something to say. He came in town the day early, helped us do some last-minute PR work, was even helping us set chairs up the night before.
Helped set up some chairs, and just to make sure we had a successful event. It was great to have Jimmy Hart back here in Belleville.
Yes, it was. Great guy.
The next guy, first one he brought out, was the man that was there to keep law and order together, and that was none other than the great Sgt Slaughter.
Sgt Slaughter, everybody loves the Sarge, and you got to have somebody like that to keep law and order. And I mean, from the time he got out there for the meet and greet, people stood in line for it seemed like a couple hours waiting to get autographs from him and hear his stories. And he put a couple of them in the camera clutch and took pictures with them. And it was just great to see the fans interact with somebody that they grew up on. And he had a great time. It really was.
He's one that I remember from growing up watching wrestling. He was one of the big stars when I was younger, watching wrestling and growing up, and just having that good time to see him there in person. And as you said, just so personable, willing to do whatever he could to help anybody that was there, signing autographs, taking pictures, and he definitely had a few people in that clutch as the night went on.
Yes, he did. Well, one of the greatest feuds ever was between him and the Iron Sheik that everybody will always remember that feud. So
the next guy that came down to the room was one of the kings there that night, none other than Jerry the King Lawler.
Jerry the King Lawler, great individual. Everybody wanted to see him. Helped Jimmy Hart get his start in the business down in the Memphis, Tennessee area years ago. I knew from the time that he got there, because he was going to be in action that night. He was all geared up for that. He was asking me, hey, this guy I'm going against, you told me it was a big guy. Which one is he? And I pointed out that the big 450-pound Kowalski. And the King was like, okay, I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a wall. But But a great guy. Jerry came out, said some kind words, and then was in action later on in the evening.
Absolutely. Next to come out, meet and greet with the fans, had a great night. Another great wrestling legend, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Greg the Hammer, he's always willing to lay that elbow down on him. Of course, a lot of the older fans was coming up talking to him about his father, who was Johnny Valentine, that was really popular in the St. Louis days back at Wrestling at the Chase. And Greg is a chip off of the old block and signed a lot of autographs, took a lot of pictures. But everybody that came up was telling him about, hey, I used to watch your dad at Wrestling at the Chase. So really made him feel good. So Greg, it was good to have Greg in the house with us.
It was, and great night, and always had quite a line at his table of people waiting there to meet him. You talked about wrestling action that night. Another great group that was in action that night, one of the best tag teams of all time, came down as the Rock and Roll Express.
Well, one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all times tag teams in the business, Ricky Martin and Robert Gibson. What pleasant guys they were. A lot of the ladies coming up saying, "Oh, we grew up with you," and they had the bandanas and all of that around their wrist, and it was just great to see them come out very personable. Took time to talk to everybody, and of course, the ones that probably didn't like him was the professionals, because they had to deal with him that night, and it didn't turn out too well for the professionals, but the Rock and Roll Express was a big hit at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds.
Yes, they were. We'll talk a little bit about that match here shortly, but while we're talking tag teams, let's talk another tag team that was there, perfect for the Halloween theme, the tag team by the name Demolition.
Demolition, Axe and Smash, two big guys. It was really a great tag team combination throughout their whole career, and they ended up there at the fairgrounds. Another group of two guys that just loved to sit and talk the business, and a lot of fans came up asking them for their autographs and buying pictures, and two gentlemen that just really wanted to take the time, and it couldn't have been better at the Halloween atmosphere that we had there.
Yes, definitely. Definitely a great night having Demolition in the house. This next gentleman had a busy week with SICW. Not only was he there with us at the Halloween Spooktacular, but earlier this week, his hometown, Florissant, Missouri, they had a little festival for him along with the Wrestling at the Chase. The mayor was there, gave him a proclamation, none other than the ace, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr.
The ace, our hometown hero, like you said, the city of Florissant, his hometown, where he's lived probably for the last 30-plus years, honored him for his contribution to the professional wrestling business. Of course, as we talked that night at the ceremony, his father was on the first card back in 1959 at Wrestling at the Chase. His brother, Barry, who just passed away recently, big wrestling star. And, of course, everybody knows Randy Orton, WWE legend, still there doing what he wants to do. And, of course, then Bob is just great, runs the Ace Wrestling Academy for SICW. And I was really glad they honored Bob that way. And he was there Saturday at the meet and greet. And, again, people standing in line just waiting to get his autograph and talk to him.
Absolutely. Let's talk about another wrestler that was in action this past weekend at the Halloween Spooktacular, and that was a gentleman by the name of Haku.
Haku, one of the biggest, toughest men in the business, if not the toughest. Anybody you talk to in the professional side of the business, they tell you if they ever had to go up in the ring with him, it was always a tough night for him. He can walk the walk and talk the talk. He can back it up. He can get in there and really take it to his opponent, which we'll see a little bit later on. But yes, he another guy that everybody just wanted to meet because they've seen him throughout his career, what he's capable of doing.
Absolutely, and he lived up to that.
Yes, he did.
Definitely had a heck of a match on Saturday. Now, one last gentleman, you had him at the first table inside the door. That way, if anything got too rowdy, you had a man there to help you. And he went by the name of Dr. D. David Schultz. Dr.
D. David Schultz, my good friend, just a guy that you love to meet and talk with. He's got a score to settle in the business, and he makes no bones about that. Then, when I was up there at the table with him, not one person came up and asked him that wrong question about the business, but he took a lot of photographs with the fans, signed a lot of autographs.
Sold quite a few of his books.
So kind, if you haven't picked up one of Dr. D's David books, Schultz's books, you need to, because not only does it talk about his career in the wrestling business, it talks about his bounty hunting business, and he's getting ready to write a new book, and it's going to be the good, the bad, and the ugly of professional wrestling. And I joked with him and said, well, I hope I'm in there somewhere to probably be in the ugly part, but he assured me it won't be. So, but it's always great to have Dr. D. David Schultz on anything that SICW is involved with.
So, Herb, we walked through those 11 legends. We talked about the trunk or treat. We talked about the hayrides. That was enough to make a night a fan fest in itself. But beyond that, now we've got 10 great matches of wrestling that we're going to talk about that happened there that night. So the fans really had hours worth of entertainment, and most of them were there for the whole time.
Oh, I don't think anybody left early. And it seemed like as the night went on, the crowd got bigger and got closer to the rings, and all you could see is fans with their cameras taking pictures, and at times you couldn't even hear yourself thinking there.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about the opening match. A couple SICW tag teams that we've seen in action before, and it was a great event that night. We saw Gary Jackson and Gil Rogers take on Christopher Hargis and the Iron Man Ken Casa.
Well, the team of the Night Train, Gary Jackson and Gil Rogers, the popular team. Anywhere they're at, they're the popular team. And of course, when you have the likes of King Christopher Hargis and the Iron Man Ken Casa, who's always in their corner, Travis the Crook Cook. So that match what a match to open up your night of the business. It was a wild one, and the fans really loved it.
It was definitely a way for the fans to get interested, get hooked really quick. And if that is your opening card, the rest of the night is going to be wild.
Yeah.
And it did not disappoint. From that, we went straight into a match with one of those legends. We saw Jerry the King Lawler take on Kowalski, and Kowalski had some tricks in his corner as well.
Well, yeah, you have the likes of Curtis Wild, the Wildfire, and Wildfire with him in his corner. That's always trouble for anybody. That role was switched during this match. Usually it's Curtis Wild in action, and the big 450-pound Kowalski is his quote man wall on the outside. But this match, it was reversed, and it was Kowalski. And I got to tell you, I was worried for the King there for quite a bit of that match. You got a guy 450 pounds going against the King, Jerry Lawler. And there was times that the King was down, and I thought he was out a couple different times.
And especially when you have Curtis Wild and Wildfire on the outside of the ring, the King needed eyes in the back of his head, on the side of his head. He needed to be focused on Kowalski. But in the end, he was able to pull it out and come up victorious.
Yes, he was. He stood there and did a standing drop kick on Kowalski, and boy, Kowalski was wavering back and forth, and that big tree trunk was ready to go down, but the King was able to get the better of Kowalski. But Kowalski has nothing to be ashamed of, I can tell you.
It was an outstanding match and a way to continue that charge into that night of how good the professional wrestling was there at the Belle Claire Fairgrounds.
Yes, that would have been a main event in any arena.
It was a night of main events.
Every match was a main event.
And let's talk about this next match, a great singles match with a up and comer here at SICW in the great Jason Breed, taking on a man from down in Tennessee, Jake Lawless.
What a match that was, and you're right, Jason Breed is really climbing that ladder fast. He is one half of the SICW Tag Team Champions, along with Flash Flanagan. He was in single competition Saturday night. Jake Lawless from Tennessee, from the former USA Championship Wrestling Group, made an appearance there, and I knew that was going to be a good match because they were so matched evenly. Jake Lawless will break those rules anytime he can to get a victory, but came up short. But Jason Breed is a gentleman that I think that you got to keep your eye on in the SICW, because he's really climbing that ladder fast for the short time that he's been with us.
And he has his eyes set on the Travis Cook organization and anything that stands in his way of taking them down.
Well, he's made that clear in a couple of interviews that he's done, that if the TCO, any of them, wants to have it out with him, just bring it on. And I don't think he's going to back down.
No, he's ready for whatever fight you throw at him.
Exactly.
Talking about a fight, let's talk about this next one. His tag team partner, not last Saturday though, his tag team partner was in a tag match, but it was Flash Flanagan tagged up with the new Big Texan as they went into battle with Rough Cut Rick Ruby and Richard Shaw.
Another main event. You know, Rough Cut Rick Ruby, a mountain of a man. You know, Shaw, a big individual. And then on the other side, Flash Flanagan, you know, one of the guys that's been around for a long time, and he's a guy that can brawl, he can wrestle, whatever his opponent wants to do, he's going to give it to him. But then you put the likes of the new Big Texan, and I say the new Big Texan because there is a fire been lit underneath him.
Oh, boy.
And I'm telling you, everything from the coming to the ring with the branding iron and the cowbell and the rope, the bull rope, and then that devastating lariat that he does.
And we got to witness that lariat on a Saturday night. You know, at first I didn't even know that match was going to get to start. Rick Ruby came out and kind of disrespected one of the greatest fans in SICW, our great friend. There was a seat there ringside in memory of our good friend Jerry Bullion, and Rough Cut Rick Ruby thought he was deserving enough to sit in that seat, and Jerry's sister was going to take care of that match before it even got started.
Well, you know, we have pledged to Peggy Mender and her family that Jerry Bullion was such a long-time wrestling fan, over 40-plus years that he's been following SICW, that we have designated a chair that will be at every one of our events with his name on it in memory of him, because we know he's looking down on us because he was such an avid wrestling fan, and it's always next to her chair. And Rick Ruby, for whatever reason, thought that he, as you said, had the right to go over there and sit down in it. And, of course, Peggy's not going to have any of that. I don't know if you saw, but when I saw that happen, I got up and got around the other side of the ring because Peggy is a fan, has been a fan herself, and she's not going to let anybody disrespect her brother's memories.
And me watching that, I thought she was going to deliver the lariat before the Big Texan had a chance to.
Yeah.
So they were able to get in that ring, and we were able to see a great match, and Big Texan and Flash Flanagan victorious with the delivery of another one of those great lariats.
Big lariats, I'm telling you.
The next match was a match we've seen a couple times here recently, and it keeps getting better and better. Kind of what we've been playing as an amateur wrestling battle with the great Belleville's greatest, Bobby D, took on the superstar Steve Fender.
What a match that was. I mean, when Dr. Drew and I was sitting there at ringside, I mean, it was back and forth. And like you said, they've been tit for tat. You know, they're equaled up kind of each win. But I even had fans coming up to me, and they've been texting me since and saying, you know, maybe you ought to do a best out of 3 match with these guys because it's such an intense match between superstar Steve Fender and Belleville's own Bobby D. I mean, it was back and forth, in the ring, out of the ring. That's too close of a match to call either way. So the fans really, another main event.
Well, and you talk about best of 3. We've seen Bobby D victorious. We've seen superstar Steve victorious. You know, maybe it is time to have a winner-take-all here and see who really is the best, you know, amateur-style wrestling.
Well, they start off kind of amateur, but then, boy, then they really tune it up a notch or two. And like I said, in the ring, out of the ring, on top of the ropes, it's just really too hard of a match to call.
Absolutely. Next match ended in a kind of a peculiar way that doesn't happen very often when we saw the high-flying Billy McNeil taking on a friend of his in the Canadian hero, Shawn Vincent.
You know, and props to Billy McNeil. I mean, he could have that match could have went down in the record book as a win for him because Shawn tried to do the leapfrog, came down on his ankle, twisted it. In fact, we saw pictures of it that was taken of it, pretty bruised up. But referee awarded the match to Billy McNeil, but
stopped the match. Said,
stopped it. So
I can't let this continue.
And I knew right away when the referee was giving me the signal that there was it was an injury that Shawn wasn't going to be able to continue. But Billy said, "Nope, I'm not going to take the win that way. We'll catch up and we'll have a rematch." And that's the kind of people that we have in that SICW locker room. And I really applaud Billy McNeil for that, and we wish Shawn all the speedy recovery to get that ankle better. The reports that we got the next couple of days after that was that there was no fractures, just really a badly bruised ankle.
Waiting on some results of the MRIs,
Yeah.
and it definitely did not look good. Let's talk about another group of legends that were in action that night when we witnessed the Rock and Roll Express taking on probably the one of the better tag teams of the area, if not one of the best tag teams in the professionals.
Well, it's no doubt the professionals are the best tag team combination in the Midwest or anywhere as far as that goes. They have been. I've said this for many years now. They're like peanut butter and jelly. They just jam together. They know how each other's going to work. They take each other care of each other. But they had their work cut out for them against the tag team of the Rock and Roll Express, and I mean, they were a little disadvantaged because the crowd was behind the Rock and Roll Express.
Well, and they showed up wearing kilts.
Yeah,
I mean,
that didn't do them any good.
Caught all the fans off guard, going, "Hey, what's going on here?"
Yeah, what's going on here? And and then again, I don't know if it was they just didn't seem. I said they jammed together, but that night it just seemed like they were off. They weren't on their A game.
Well, Rock and Roll Express was able to manipulate them a little
Throw
bit.
them off their A game.
There was a couple times that they were able to make some quick dodging moves, and the professionals were caught face to face.
Yeah, and again, so that might have had something to do with it. But again, it was a great match. Again, another main event.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of main events, this next one was the semi-main event, and it was a main event in any means, in any decade, in any profession. It was a 2-ring battle royal for the Central States Championship.
Well, I think it ended up being 21 contestants in those 2 rings, and I joked people as the people in it was just coming out, the wrestlers, Rough Cut Rick Ruby, the big Texan, Kowalski, 450 pounds. And I mean, somebody said, where's the beef at? It was in the Belle Claire Fairgrounds that night.
But the ring stayed standing.
Both rings. And, I got to give a shout out to my good friend Scotty Z from New Breed Wrestling, because he brought his ring up. That's why we were able to have the 2-ring battle royal. You can't have 2-ring battle royal with only 1 ring. So again, thanks to Scotty Z at New Breed Wrestling and your crew to come up and help you, Larry, and all of them. And it was great action like you hadn't seen. People coming up saying, we've never seen anything like this before. Absolutely. Well, you wouldn't hear, because the last time there was a 2-ring battle royal was our great friend Larry Matisek did one at the St. Louis Checker Dome, and that was the last 2-ring battle royal ever.
And Herb, not something we would normally do here, but let's take a second and look at some clips from that 2-ring battle royal back in Belleville.
Good job, Ruby!
There you go. Gary, I don't know if you know this, but ladies and gentlemen, not only are you now the Central States Champion, it also makes you the first ever SICW Grand Slam.
Yeah! Yes!
And now, Gary Jackson, you are the only man to win the Bruiser Brody Memorial.
Let's go!
Royal, the SICW Tag Team Championships, the SICW Classic Wrestling Championship, and now the Central States title. Gary, congratulations. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great. My fans are behind me.
Yes!
I'm feeling great.
Gary! Gary! Gary!
When I first got my start in 1986, I started in 1986 in Kansas City in the Central State.
Yeah! Yes! You deserve it! You deserve it!
Ladies and gentlemen, everybody knows that I'm a fighting champion.
Yes.
365, 24/7. I'm ready to defend this title right now.
Yeah.
If I can. Because my work just got harder. Instead of being in the driver's seat, I am the driver. Herb Simmons, you know I will take on a challenge at any given time against anybody, anywhere. Because everybody knows the night train played by 4 rules. Rule number 1 is I came out to win. Rule number 2 is I refuse to lose. Rule number 3 is I did my best to beat everybody in this battle royal.
Yeah!
And rule number 4 is the most important rule of them all. If you do it, say it with me.
Don't forget the rules! Yeah, Gary!
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you!
I would like to say thank you. And I think you need to give yourself a round of applause. Because if you guys would have showed up tonight, we wouldn't have this fantastic event. I'm just a small piece of the puzzle. All these other guys that came out here tonight gave y'all 110%. And we're still not done tonight. We got one big more match coming up behind me. And I guarantee you, if you don't have no seatbelts and no seats, you better get them because the roof is ready to fly off this
Yes,
joint.
it is, baby.
I'm going to go and get off the mic and say good night to all, and to all a good night. All aboard, good night, Frank.
How about that? Come down to the finish, and the great night train, Gary Jackson, is our Central States champion.
Well, and you heard him that night talk about how prestigious that was for him. When he started his career, he started in the Central States, which was in the Kansas City area, and he was so honored. And I mean, you know, when I talk about this guy being the energized bunny, I mean, he's been doing this a long, long time. You know, he used to sneak into the wrestling at the Chase when he was 16 years old. And he has had a career, retired from the military, continues to wrestle to this day. He is one of the best, if not the best, in the market and professional wrestling out there. Other promoters will tell you that. Other men he shares the locker room with. And I'm just so happy to have him in our locker room and now as the Central States champion.
Great to see another belt that can be defended here at SICW, and I know the list will be long and distinguished for those that are in line that want to go up for that title.
Yes, it will be.
And when we talk about main events, we had a main event of the century when we watched the toughest man alive, the King Haku, went to battle against the SICW champion of the International Bounty Hunter, Attila Khan.
Again, if you put them on the same level, which I think you have to, when you look at the career of King Haku, everybody he's fought from day one, the matches that he's had against all the likes of the greats, and then you look at the matches that Attila Khan, under the leadership, tutelage of Travis the Crook Cook, those two were pretty equally balanced there. And I'm going to tell you, I was worried about that match. From the time I booked it until it ended, I was worried because I didn't know what was going to be able to come out of that. They are two monsters. They both had something they wanted to prove to one another. And you've seen what happened.
Well, you saw what happened. I saw what happened. Doesn't usually go that way, but tonight, with your permission, let's let the fans take a look at what happened.
Yeah, we recognize not everybody could be there that night. And again, the fans that were there saw match, and we want to warn you that it may not be good for some viewers.
Yeah, viewer discretion is definitely advised.
Right.
Take a look.
Come on, Attila. He can't knock you down, baby. He can't knock you down. Let's go, Attila. Stay up, baby. Stay up. No.
Take control.
Yeah, Attila. That's it, baby, that's it!
What's up, Brad?
Yes. Let's go, Attila. Now you got him where you want it. Now you got him where you want it. Shut up, man.
Well, Herb, who would have thought Attila Khan would defeat Haku with the 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring?
Well, there's probably only one person out there that thought that was Travis Cook. I mean,
You didn't think that
I
when,
had no
when
idea.
you
No.
recruited Haku out in Las Vegas and
thought
said, I
that-
need you to come in and take care of Attila Khan and the
he
Travis
was-
Cook
he-
organization.
He was this close to getting Travis Cook. He got his hands on him.
Well, and maybe that distraction is what ultimately cost
And
him.
it may well have been, but I was kind of hoping he'd hold on to him for about 5 minutes or so. But, it happens. It just really gave Travis something more to brag about, which, in this business is okay. But I'm telling you, there's going to come a day, and it could be real soon.
It definitely could be real soon, and we're going to still talk about what's coming here in SICW. But before we move into that, Herb, let's wrap up a little bit on the SICW Halloween Spooktacular. Is there anything you would have done different?
I don't know what it would have been. I mean, the fans were just so happy. I mean, that's a big building, and it was packed.
It was full.
The
Every
concession stand.
chair they had was set up.
The concession stand was busy. You heard a couple of days afterwards how busy the concession stand was. The cold beverages were flowing. The youngsters, the older fans, everybody had a great time. All the legends, I've heard from each and every one of them texting me saying, hey, it was a great show. You did it right. People who couldn't get there, our good friends, Darla Staggs, Barbara Goodish, the widow of Bruiser Brody, texted us. They saw different pictures.
They even sponsored a match. I mean,
Yes.
Here we get to the main event. We hear this match is sponsored by the Four Horsewomen. And
Right.
So they even went together. They
Mercy,
couldn't be there,
yeah.
but they wanted to make sure that they sponsored that main event of all main events.
And they did. So people from around the country had their eyes on Belleville, Illinois on this match because there had been a lot of promo work done on it, a lot of talk for the last 2-3 months, and it paid off. And I can't say enough for the locker room of SICW, for all the great fans, because I say that all the time. No fans, no SICW. That's just the bottom line. I'll argue that with anybody. Got to have those great fans, and we got them, and they poured out that Saturday night at Belclair Fairgrounds.
They absolutely did. So what's next? Where do those fans need to go coming off of a night like that to see this continue?
Well, if I was one of those fans that wanted to see more of that action, Saturday night, November the 13th at the East Grand Lake Community Center, another great card there. We're there every month, and a championship match will be on the line there. Travis Cook signed it, and I was glad because I've reached out to a gentleman who has probably had more matches than a lot of wrestlers in the Midwest. And he's been with us now a couple of times. He's kind of came back out of his semi-retirement state, and I'm talking about the human wrecking ball, Pete Madden. You've seen him, you witnessed him in action.
Came to Swansea Firehouse this year.
And in Swansea Firehouse, he was all over the place. And if there's anybody that can wrestle, who can rumble, who can brawl, who can bleed more than a telecon can, it's the human wrecking ball, Pete Madden. And so the main event on November the 13th at the East Carolina Community Center, I've signed the human wrecking ball, Pete Madden, to go one-on-one against the telecon, the International Bounty Hunter.
Definitely going to be a great night. And don't forget, fans, if you come out on Saturday, November 13th, that night you'll have your opportunity to get free tickets for Sunday, November 14th, when we return to the East Carondelet Community Center for the TV taping. So
it's always a fun time on Sunday afternoon. Fans come out for a little studio audience and be a part of those TV tapings. And like you said, it's come out Saturday night and then be a part of that TV taping. You'll have a great time.
Absolutely. And Herb, we talked about October was a month to remember, and that you would never be able to top that. And here comes another rabbit out of your hat.
Well,
December 1st.
Well, and it's not a rabbit out of hat. This is just the right thing to do. No matter what happens on November the 13th, because I'm supposed to be impartial, but it would be nice, and wouldn't you agree, that the human wrecking ball scored a victory there?
I think that would be amazing.
Couldn't happen to a better guy than Pete Madden. So I know a lot of the fans are going to be rooting for the human wrecking ball. So regardless, win, lose, or draw for a telecon, I've signed a match for him on Wednesday night, December the 1st. There's a place over in 270 and Watson Road in St. Louis called the Holiday Inn, next to the Viking Lounge. You know that area there. Everybody knows that area there.
Yeah, right there between Sunset Hills and Kirkwood. Exactly.
It's a great location. But the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame has asked to have a match there. And part of the ceremonies that night is they're going to be inducting Sam Muchnick, who was the former president of the National Wrestling Alliance for off and on for over 41 years. They're going to induct my dear great friend, late friend, Larry Matisek, who was the voice of Wrestling at the Chase for many, many years and worked under Sam Muchnick every day in the office. And then the third individual they're going to be inducting into the sports Hall of Fame is our good friend, late friend, Mickey Garagiola, the brother of Joe Garagiola, who was the first play-by-play announcer in 1959 on Wrestling at the Chase, who went on to go to New York and become a great national figure himself.
Absolutely.
So those three gentlemen will be inducted. Their families will be there. The Muchnick family, the Garagiola family, Pat Matisek will be there, Larry's widow. But also, we've reached out to a former NWA member. His brother was a former NWA champion, Jack Briscoe. His brother, Gerald Briscoe, will be joining us that night. Jerry and Jack was big in St. Louis. They were big anywhere they wrestled together, both of them. And so Gerald Briscoe will be there with us that night. Also, our good friend, the Ace Cowboy Bob Orton, will be joining us. Also, St. Louis's own local former SICW champion, somebody that traveled the roads with Bruiser Brody, Crusher Blackwell, Dick Murdoch. I'm speaking of Ron Powers, will be there that night to help with the induction ceremony. But the earth-shaking news that we heard here last week, people said they felt the tremors going, is when William Corrigan, the owner-president of the National Wrestling Alliance, and myself came to an agreement that on that night, Wednesday, December the 1st, there will be a world title match, the NWA title, the most prestigious title in the country around
10
the
pounds
world.
of gold, as they call it.
10 pounds of gold will be on the line that night, and the NWA champion, Trevor Murdoch, who won that title just recently at the Chase Park Plaza, NWA 73 night, will be at that December 1st card, and he's going to be defending that title against the International Bounty Hunter, a telecon. Now, what a match that's going to be.
What a match that is going to be. I hope the Holiday Inn has extra security that night to hold the walls in.
Well, tickets are already being sold. I mean, the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame is saying that they're flying off of the machine. But these two men both trained under the late, great Harley Race.
That they did.
So they've got something to prove.
Yes, they do. And you talked about those tickets being on sale right now. Go right now to SICW.org, click that purchase link for purchasing tickets, and you'll be able to select that event December 1st, and it'll take you right to where you can purchase them, because I guarantee you those tickets are going to sell out.
Well, it's going to be like the show that we did here a few weeks ago back at the Missouri Athletic Club. Those tickets went on sale, and that was a membership only, but they were sold within the first 50 minutes through their membership. This is open to the public.
Open to the public.
So you want to get your tickets early.
They have general admission seats, they have ringside seats, and they have some VIP tables you could purchase.
Exactly.
So you want to make sure you do that sooner than later, because you don't want to miss your opportunity. First of all, to see those three wrestling legends inducted into the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, where they deserve to be amongst no other, and then to top that all off, an NWA title match right here in St. Louis.
Well, and we got to give accolades to Ed Wheatley, the author of Wrestling at the Chase, that new book that just came out. He's a member of that Sports Hall of Fame, and it's a great working with him. He'll be there. He'll have that new Wrestling at the Chase book that you can get just right before the holidays. It's going to make a good Christmas gift. He'll be set up there. If you haven't checked out that new Wrestling at the Chase book, I'm telling you, it's great, loaded full of photos and stories. It's a coffee table style book, and you can go to SICW.org.
Also for sale on SICW.org.
And get that book there. But so Ed's helped put this together. It is going to be a night, and for those of you, I mean, I had the opportunity to talk with the champion Trevor Murdoch, and he does have something to prove to Attila Khan, and basically he summed it up and said, what I've got to prove to him is I am the best. I learn from the best. And, of course, Attila don't speak a whole bunch, but, of course, his handler, his manager, whatever you deem him, Travis Cook, seems to think that Attila Khan has something to prove to Trevor Murdoch. So we're going to let them two collide. And when I say collide, the NWA champion, Trevor Murdoch, this is his first title defense since winning it at the Corsaigne Room, will go against Attila Khan. And when those two do this, those who are going to benefit is the ones that are sitting in that room that gets to see history being made.
Absolutely, Herb. A little bit unorthodox style here for our episode tonight, but as you said, the Halloween Spooktacular was such a great event that how could we not share it with the fans that couldn't be there in attendance? So it was great that we were able to put this on tonight. Next Sunday, we will be back with our Sunday night update and the next episode of SICW All-Star Wrestling. So until next Sunday, we want to see you at the matches.